Isn't it?
Yeah, earlier on it was scary. It was really scary.
It still is.
8 to 10 feet tall, shadowy aliens. Conspiracy theories are saying a big creature could be seen standing in front of the entrance.
You also have on your list microphones, or put microphones and stuff to hear her, right?
Right.
Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, we do videos on creepy and disturbing things here. Welcome to the long-awaited next installment of my Can't Look Away series, a series on my channel where I talk about 5 different super disturbing stories that actually happen, and you probably haven't heard them before. We're gonna get right into the stories today, but today's video is supported by a sponsor, so I'm gonna roll to that, but I'll be right back with you. This video is brought to you by the most sex-positive company ever, and that is Bellesa. Bellesa is a bi-woman company for everything sexual wellness. They want everyone, regardless of their identity, to be very comfortable with their sexuality and even celebrate it. I've said this before, but I was a fan of Bellesa before I ever worked with them. Months before, in fact, I bought their demi wand with my own money. I've been a huge fan ever since, and they are the only company I will get my toys from. This adorable, aesthetically pleasing little vibrator is called the Rose. It has powerful suction and 10 different modes. It also fits perfectly in the palm of your hand for full control. The other toy that I've been really vibing with lately, see what I did there, is the Thump. This one is just so much fun because it has all of the functions. It suctions, it vibrates, and, well, it thumps. This little number uses Bellesa's improved pleasure jet technology and something called true feel vibrations that naturally complement the suction at its base. It's waterproof, if you know, you know. It's USB rechargeable, and it's made from premium silicone. As I showed you, it also comes in a very discreet, sleek little carrying case. My friends at Bellesa and I want to hook you all up with either a free Rose suction toy, that's this one, or a free gift card. Every single person who's watching this video who signs up for my giveaway using the link below will win either a free gift card or a Rose suction toy. All you have to do is click the link that will be right below this video at the top of the description, or it will be in the pinned comment to sign up for the giveaway and win either a free Rose toy or a free gift card. Thank you again to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video, as well as just supporting all of our self-care, and let's get into the stories. There was a quick disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but just another reminder that these stories are disturbing and won't be for everyone. Jacob Cockle was an amazing kid and grew into an amazing person. He was adventurous right from the get-go. He was brave and lively. Though he struggled with dyslexia and therefore his grades in school, it didn't matter much because he knew from a very young age that his life's purpose was to be in the water. Reports say that Jacob learned how to swim pretty much as he was learning how to walk. And once he got a taste for the water, that was it. That was his destiny. Almost every day as a teenager, Jacob and his friends would hitchhike after school to the beach to go surfing. Jacob had 3 older siblings, Joe, Lauren, and Grace. Together, they were raised in the Penzance area of the UK. He was raised in a loving family, but the moment Jacob was born on March 2nd, 1985, he and his older sister Grace were absolutely inseparable. They were the closest of all the siblings. Grace was 3 years older than Jacob, but it was said that they were so close when they were little that they kind of made a secret language together, and it was so intense that Jacob barely talked. Like, for a long time, people thought he couldn't talk, and that's because he would only talk to Grace in this secret language, and Grace would often speak for him. But in 2001, Grace was diagnosed with brain cancer. Even though Grace put up an incredible fight to beat it, brain cancer is often relentless, and it took her life in December of 2002. She was only 20 years old, and Jacob was only 17. Of course, Grace's entire family was absolutely devastated at the loss, but nobody was changed quite like Jacob was. Some of the information I got for this story was from a beautifully written BBC article, which I'll have linked down below. And that article explains that after Grace died, Jacob felt like he had absorbed her energy in a way. It was like she died, and so he had to live twice as hard and do twice as many things because it was like he was allowing Grace to live life through him. Jacob was already a daredevil, but once Grace died, he decided that he was not going to get a traditional job. He was going to figure out how to make money for the necessities without having to do a 9-to-5 so that he could continue his adventures. And Jacob did exactly that. He made the decision after Grace died as a teenager to become a photographer, or even making like a little written vision board for himself. Jacob didn't need to make a ton of money. Again, he just wanted to do something that he was passionate about, that he could get paid to basically eat and have a roof over his head. Jacob did become a photographer, and he would go on to win several awards for his work. He was most well known for getting these amazing shots of things that most people wouldn't be able to capture with the camera because they weren't willing to do the very dangerous thing that it took to get the shot, but Jacob was willing to do that. Him and his friends would go surfing, but Jacob would seek out the biggest possible wave, so big that it was considered dangerous. They would surf through storms. Jacob was also well known for having people film him while he jumped off very, very high landmarks into pretty dangerous looking water, like lots of rocks down there. On at least one occasion, he got in trouble with the police because he was not supposed to jump off one of these landmarks. The photo on the screen now is a shot that Jacob took when he won a competition for this photo, and it was on posters in the London Underground, which is a transit system in London. However, there was something else that Jacob really loved taking photographs and video footage of, and that was whirlpools. And there was a body of water close to him that a few times a year would create an incredible one. This is Hale Harbor. It was actually by design, a weird Victorian engineering design, that Hale Harbor had the capability to make whirlpools, and it happened a few times a year. Hale Harbor had this engineering capability to prevent itself from getting filled up with sand, but a side effect of that design was that a few times a year, it would create a very powerful, large whirlpool. In spite of the warning signs surrounding the harbor, Jacob would go in and go underwater and film these whirlpools above the water, but also under the water, and then he would post them on YouTube. On May 28th, 2013, the whirlpool at the harbor was back, and Jacob got help from a friend and a colleague named David to help film him playing and swimming around this whirlpool. Jacob can be seen in the footage repeatedly putting on and taking off a horse mask, and he did this simply to make the video more interesting, knowing that it would make it more mysterious and interesting for people watching. You know, the weird factor that we do now to intrigue people into videos. His friend did not go in and is filming Jacob from the shore. This entire video is on YouTube, by the way. Jacob's friends are actually the one who posted it with the description explaining that Jacob would have wanted it that way. He would have wanted this footage shown to the world. It's not incredibly graphic footage though, so I don't see anything inherently wrong with that if his friends who knew him best thought that that was okay. Several times, his friend David tells him that they have plenty of footage and that he could get out, but Jacob just keeps saying, one more, just a little longer. I just want one more shot of this or that.
That was pretty scary.
You got enough?
I should really make the most of it. I don't know what else to do.
Finally, in the video, Jacob asks his friend to hand him the GoPro from the shore so that he can go underwater and film the whirlpool from there. Again, not the first time he had done this. We see Jacob take the camera and dive under the water and start to film, but the footage pretty much ends there. Like I said, it's not particularly graphic footage, it's just the context that's frightening. Jacob took this GoPro and went under, and he never came back up. He just got a little too close to the whirlpool. The pressure and the power of it sucked him in, and it sucked him down under the water in a way that Jacob could not swim back to the shore. So the whirlpool itself didn't kill him. His cause of death is drowning. But he wouldn't have drowned if the whirlpool hadn't grabbed him. David, of course, is panicking once he notices that Jacob doesn't come back up. He is running around frantically trying to figure out where he would come back to shore. Knowing that the whirlpool goes into a tunnel in this harbor, he was looking everywhere in the area, even recruiting a fisherman nearby, asking him if he saw his friends. Jacob was eventually spit back out of the tunnel and ended up floating to the surface on the other side of the pool, but he was face down. There was nothing they could do. It was already too late. The fisherman and David called 999 immediately. That is the UK's emergency service line. They got ambulance there. They did everything they could, but he was just already gone. Jacob then lost his life at only 28 years old. But remember Grace, Jacob's sister that I told you about earlier, who passed away from brain cancer at 20? Well, something about Grace that I didn't tell you is that she had asked her family to not scatter her ashes. She was cremated, but she didn't want her ashes scattered until somebody else in the family passed away. She had said when she was alive that she was scared to be scattered by herself. She didn't want to be sent to her eternal resting place by herself, and so the family kept her ashes. And then after Jacob died, it seemed poetic and perfect to scatter the siblings' ashes together. Grace's and Jacob's ashes are scattered together in fields near Gwenver. Let's switch gears to everybody's favorite website, 4chan, and we're going to go back to September 2017. This is a story about how a user on 4chan purposely made chlorine gas to try out his new gas mask, and it didn't go as planned. So, on September 19, 2017, a Tuesday, at about 1:45 p.m., an anonymous user posts a picture of bleach, vinegar, and a gas mask. They post, about to test out this gas mask. Somebody responds, okay, what could possibly go wrong? Post results if you live. They post again at a little after 2 o'clock, what could go wrong? Will report. And they show a picture of them pouring vinegar into a glass with a bright yellow substance, which, by the way, is what chlorine gas looks like. Then the next post at about 2:22 from OP says, holy fuck, it hurts. Might have to go to the hospital. And shows a picture of his arm looking incredibly burnt. Somebody says, you fucking fool, that will also burn your skin and soak into your surroundings. Legit question, please tell me you don't have an apartment, pets, or roommates. Depending on your mixture, you just effed up big time. Let's say you made 4 ounces of gas that comes out to 29,962 parts per million, and concentrations of about 400 parts per million and beyond are generally fatal over 30 minutes. And at 1,000 parts per million and above, fatality issues within only a few minutes. And that is correct. I did Google that as well. As far as I understand, that this commenter is correct. And they said, congrats, OP, you're going to figure out what the afterlife is like. Somebody says, dude, go vent yourself somewhere and literally bathe with a garden hose. You are going to melt otherwise. It acts on flesh, not just on breathing pathways. It melts flesh, which makes people drown in their own melted lungs. But your arms can be effed too. He posts another picture and it says, it's starting to peel and fall off. Still hurts like a bitch. Really don't want to call emergency. And then posts one last picture at 2:36 p.m. saying, goodbye, Kay, with one more picture of his arm looking pretty bad. The other people then comment speculating about if he's dead, if he killed other people, and if it can be absorbed and kill you through your skin, even if he's wearing a gas mask. Listen, I know most of you know this, but I feel like it's necessary to say, don't ever mix cleaning products. Just in case you had parents that didn't teach you stuff like that, it is not safe to mix any cleaning products unless you are a Walter White status world-class chemist and know precisely what you're doing. Don't do it, because different chemicals mixed together can be very dangerous. When you mix specifically bleach with some sort of acid-based solution, it's going to cause a very harmful gas. And the gas goes into the air. It affects your skin, your respiratory system. If you breathe it in, it can hurt or kill your pets. It can hurt or kill other people if they're in the area. And you might end up in the hospital, but it can also be lethal. And people have and will continue to die from doing this. In this particular case, as we said, OP mixed bleach and vinegar. If you do that, it creates specifically chlorine gas, and it's way worse because it wasn't diluted at all. This user literally claims to have made chlorine gas, and it does look pretty convincing, as the stuff in the cup is what chlorine gas looks like. Here's an example of what real chlorine gas looks like. Now, this story is hard because there's very little information about this post. I could not find OP. I couldn't even find the original post on 4chan. It had just been reposted on Reddit quite a few times. There's no news articles about this or any other people that have written about it on the web that I could find. So what remains a mystery is we don't know what happened to OP after this. We don't know if he was okay or if he even survived. However, I would like to talk about the couple of very, very frequently recurring rumors about this post as people discuss it on Reddit. The first rumor is that OP did, in fact, pass away after doing this, and that's why he never posted again. There's another rumor that he even killed several people in the vicinity because he did this as well. But thankfully, I could find no evidence that that was the case. And if this had happened, we would have been able to likely find at least a local news article from this time, from September 2017, after this date, of a local person who passed away by accidentally mixing cleaning products together. And it definitely would have been on the news if he had accidentally killed other people doing this. Plus, like OP said in the post, he was testing out a gas mask. So, assuming he was wearing the gas mask when this happened, yes, it burned and affected his skin quite badly, but if he was wearing a gas mask, that would have prevented the chlorine gas from getting into his respiratory system and his lungs. And therefore, if he was wearing this gas mask properly, it's highly unlikely that he passed away. Burns on arms, on the other hand, are completely plausible. If he didn't pass away, the burns are very believable. But that leads into our next rumor. Other people say that OP made up this entire story. Some people on Reddit, and I can't verify this because, like I said, I can't find the original user, and 4chan is so anonymous that it's very difficult to research 4chan cases. But I found at least one person on Reddit saying that they remember seeing this original post, and they went to go look at OP's post history, and that he was apparently a VFX artist, a makeup artist for special effects. So people in that camp are claiming that these photos are fake, that OP used special effect makeup to make them. And honestly, especially in this particular photo, I'll show it to you pretty close up on the screen right now. In this particular photo, I could actually see that. It does almost look like pink powder that you can see. And on the places where the skin is peeling underneath, you could see hair on the skin, and it looks like his skin is just fine underneath, which you would think if the top layers of your skin were coming off, then it would be pretty red underneath, right? But it's, on the other hand, it is conceivable that just that patch of skin wasn't affected by the burns, and maybe it was just the rest of his skin. I do have to admit that the other photos he showed are pretty damn convincing. He's either an incredibly good makeup artist or this is real. But one last thing that makes me skeptical about this story is that why didn't he take pictures and show us pictures of other parts of his body? If all of his skin was exposed to this, you would think that his face or chest or neck or some other parts of his body would be affected. And even in the pictures, it kind of looks like his hands themselves are kind of fine. So it's just a little suspicious that he won't show us, he doesn't have to show his face, but even show his neck or burns on other parts of his body. There's about 10 to 20 minutes in between him commenting and posting pictures, which is also just kind of like enough time for him to add more makeup as he goes along to make it worse and worse. And then there's this photo of him making the chlorine gas This also could be theoretically staged fairly easily. He could have just taken the picture of the bleach and the vinegar on the counter, and then in the cup, he put some sort of bright colored drink in there. So there's Gatorade that is this color, Mountain Dew, stuff like that. Like he concocted some other drink to make it look like this, and then he just took a picture showing him pouring vinegar into it. Last, 4chan is just also kind of known to be brain rot content. A lot of people on there go fake stuff just for attention because it's so anonymous. It's really easy to do and to just disappear and nobody would ever know the difference. But one last thing I will say is that, on the other hand, once again, it is plausible that somebody would be this stupid. Because here's the thing, it's not like they didn't know about mixing chemicals. They went into it knowing they were making this gas to put the mask on and test out their mask. So if somebody was this stupid, it's not like I wouldn't believe it. People have done stupid things from the beginning of time. They will continue to do things this stupid till the end of time. So let me know what you think in the comments. Our next story takes us to the East Coast of the United States. On February 9th, 2022, a young woman who will remain anonymous for this story woke up in the middle of the night to everyone's worst nightmare. She turns her head on her pillow and looks into the hallway to find that there is a silhouette of a man standing there in the doorframe of her room, watching her. Naturally, she panics, jumps out of bed. She happened to be staying with her mother, and the man quickly took off. They called 911 and told them that somebody was in their house. Police came to search the home, and at first it appeared as if no one was there. They searched the attic. No one was up there, but then police hear something on the roof above them, and it sounded like footsteps. Police go outside to find 20-year-old Mauricio Damian Guerrero from Bensalem, Pennsylvania, on the roof of a woman's home in New Hampshire, a 6-hour drive away from where he lived in Pennsylvania. Police obviously arrest Mauricio and take him in. And when they talk to the woman, the victim, she tells police that she had noticed weird stuff going on in the house the last couple days, but she hadn't thought much of it. She thought she was just super busy. She wasn't the only person in the house. She was living with her mother, who owned the house at that time, and she had chalked it up to just being forgetful or someone else doing it. So she would go into a room and find that a window was cracked open, even though she swears that she closed it. She'd go into the kitchen to find that the back door was ajar. At one point, she was looking for keys that she knew she left on the counter, but while she was looking for them, the next time she came back to the counter, just a few minutes later, the keys were back. Turned out that she was a victim of frogging. Frogging with a PH, we've talked about this on the channel before. That means that you snuck into somebody's home and you are secretly living there and sneaking around living there without the homeowners knowing you're there and without their permission. So she was a victim of frogging, and all the weird events from the last couple days made sense. And it turned out Mauricio had been staying there for at least the last 2 days. But that is not what this story is even about. Turns out Mauricio and this woman did know each other, and Mauricio had been stalking her for months. For the sake of clarity, when I need to refer to this woman, I'm going to call her R so that we don't have to call her this woman every time in the story. R was an OnlyFans model, and Mauricio had subscribed to her OnlyFans months prior. He was one of R's subscribers, and they had been chatting on OnlyFans since October. Now remember, on OnlyFans, if you're not familiar, and I am not either, I've never been on OnlyFans, but on there as part of your subscription, often part of your subscription is getting to have DMs with the creator, especially if the creator's smaller. If the creator's bigger, it's probably somebody else writing the DMs for them. But if they're smaller and they're working one-on-one with clients, they're going to be sending private messages with them, as well as exchanging the pictures and videos and whatever else you're paying for. But in this particular case, Mauricio and R actually became somewhat friends. R thought that Mauricio was a really nice guy. They got along really well and kind of hit it off. R actually began to trust Mauricio, and she actually seemed to begin to actually like him. Mauricio, on the other hand, was completely delusional and thought that they were madly in love. R later told police, and by the way, I 1000% believe R, especially given what Mauricio goes on to do to her and stalk her and be super creepy, and the details get worse. So I do believe R in this case, but R said that even though she did like Mauricio, he was always very pushy. He was always very persistent with her. And for context, Mauricio was about 20 at this time, and R is around 24, 25. Another common thing with OnlyFans workers and their subscribers is that they can't accept gifts from subscribers. This is another common thing, and I think this is just part of being a sex worker. I think people that, like, that's the whole point, is like kind of giving people this parasocial relationship with you, except it is sexual in nature. And in this case as well, Mauricio wanted to also send R gifts. So R eventually relented and gave him her address, not to her mother's house where the rest of this happens, but to her apartment at the time. Gave Mauricio her apartment address so that he could send her a television and a fireplace, because he told her that he wanted to send her these things for free. And up until this point, there were no red flags. Mauricio seemed like a nice person. They got along really well, and she did genuinely like him for a time. And because he was a client, she thought it would be okay. In hindsight, was it kind of a stupid thing to do? Yes, but it doesn't mean that she deserves what happened to her. According to reports in the affidavit, though, Mauricio started getting pretty obsessed, and he started showing up at her apartment and then later her mother's house where she was living unannounced. On one occasion, he messaged R to say, "Look out your window," and he was outside of her window on the street, standing there, watching her from the street. On other occasions, he would allegedly camp outside of her house in his car. At this point, it is alleged and pretty known that the two did have intimate adult relations once. On a separate occasion from that, after that though, she did finally relent and let him into the house or into her apartment, I'm not sure which one she was at this time, to hang out. The two hung out for about 2 hours, but then R literally asked him to leave. Said, "Okay, you can go now," and was telling him, like, you can't do this. You can't just show up at my house unannounced without an invite, man. It's creepy. It was kind of around that point, after they had hung out in December, that she told him that she'd kind of cut things off with him and did not want to hang out with him anymore. But he continued to often drive the 6 hours to her house and just hang out there, get a hotel nearby, and just stay in the area. But if you weren't creeped out before, you surely will be with the rest of the details of this story. So of course, after he is arrested, Mauricio tries to claim to police. He tried to minimize it and downplay it, of course. He claimed that he had just broken into R's house while everybody was sleeping because he was mad, that she wasn't paying as much attention to him, and so he wanted to take the TV back that he had bought her. He bought her this with his own free will and his own money. He offered to buy it. She accepted a gift, and he claimed that he then wanted it back, so he broke into her house to steal it. But he claimed that's all he was doing, and he panicked when he heard people in the house. He said that he climbed up into the attic when he panicked and heard people walking around, and then there must have been roof access from the attic, from within the attic. But it's pretty safe to say that Mauricio was probably lying about this, because when they went to the attic later, they found headphones, they found food and wrappers, and they found at least 1 cup of his urine. According to the affidavit and his phone, he had been staying at their house for at least 2 days prior to this incident. It gets so much worse though, and this is probably the most violating, creepy, terrible, illegal thing that he did. And that was that on at least one occasion, but it was likely several occasions, allegedly, that he was going into R's room while she was sleeping, and she would sleep naked, and he would take photos and videos of her without her knowing while she was asleep. he had stolen her underwear and other small items from the home as well. They also found a tracking GPS device amongst his belongings, which he later allegedly admitted that he was planning to put on R's car so that he could track her movements 24/7. Also, the clip I'm about to show you is him testifying at his trial, and the prosecution is asking him questions. What you see on the screen right now is a list that they apparently found in his phone, like a little to-do list of all the things that he was planning to do once he got to her house, and like a to-do list of basically how to stalk R. So, and here's him trying to defend himself in court and answering questions about that.
You also have on your list microphones, or put microphones and stuff to hear her, right?
Right.
And so you were going to get some sort of listening device so that you could listen to her, right?
Yes, but I didn't know how to do that at all. I don't know. How can that be possible?
But it was something you wanted to do.
Not really. It was... No.
It was something you didn't want to do.
No.
But you put it on your to-do list along with the other things that you did.
I did.
You also put log into her phone, hopefully, right?
Yes.
And then a little bit later, it was remember, get into her phone, and open it and unblock me on everything, right?
Right.
So you wanted to get access to her phone to go through it, right?
I did.
And in order to do that, she was going to have to be home, right, with her phone.
Right.
And she was going to have to be sleeping, right?
No. No.
Well, you couldn't go through her phone if she was awake and there, right?
I don't know.
He claimed to police, though, that he thought that R wanted him to do this. He told police that he thought that R wanted these games, and that these were consensual stalking and R-word SA games. Now, many people, I saw so many disgusting comments from people just victim blaming and claiming that she was leading Mauricio on. And maybe she was. Let's say she was. Just because, let's say she's a crappy person, and I'm not saying she is, I don't know her. She's staying pretty well anonymous. Nobody can find who she is. But let's just say she's a crappy person. She does lead men on in order to manipulate money out of them. And she did convince Mauricio that she was in love with him so that he would give her more money and buy her gifts. What she did was crappy, but not illegal. She didn't stalk somebody. She didn't violate an SA somebody, which, by the way, taking pictures of them while they're sleeping is SA. And just because they allegedly had consensual sex at one point, remember that people are allowed to revoke consent at any time. So those people talking about her like this and blaming her for leading him on, it's really given like, but it was okay that one time, so therefore we should be able to do it whenever I want till the end of time. And I'm sorry, that's not how consent works. Even if she was doing all this crappy stuff to him, the minute she said, hey, I'm no longer interested, he should have backed off. And it does not give him the right to violate her privacy, to violate her body, and to violate her space and break in. Is it mean to lead somebody on? Yes. But is it a crime? No. Perhaps R was scared of him and wanted to be super nice and didn't want to tell him to get lost because she was scared of what he might do, which honestly, given what happens, can you blame her? So Mauricio was arrested. He was released on a $2,500 bond. He was allowed to go back to Pennsylvania, but he was not allowed to visit New Hampshire until his trial. And he was also banned from contacting or going near R, of course. He also had to wear a GPS ankle monitor, ironically. He was charged with 4 counts of burglary and 2 misdemeanors for violating a victim's privacy. He was found guilty on a couple of the burglary charges. However, they did reduce a couple of them to, I believe, like trespassing for, illegal trespassing on her property, as well as being found guilty for the violation of privacy charge. Mauricio is, as far as I know, in prison. It's possible that he got anywhere from a couple years to up to, I think, 30 years for all of his guilty convictions. However, of course, people get released on bond all the time, especially because he was non-violent. So he is in prison serving his sentence. I'm sure he will be released at some point. I highly doubt, given the way our legal system is, that he will serve 30 years. And wherever R is, I hope that she is healing from this traumatic incident and doing well. You can't go on TikTok or watch the news for more than a few days before another claim of someone saying they saw an alien or a UFO. The possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting planet Earth to abduct people for experiments or to start full-on alien invasions is a deep-seated fear in many. Others have detailed reports on claims that they were actually abducted, recalling loss of time at night, coupled with strange dreams and waking up with strange markings or scars on their bodies, while others have reported actually having seen UFOs in the sky. You can't deny that we are both fascinated and terrified of aliens. On January 1st, 2024, New Year's Day, the Miami Mall in Miami, Florida, exploded with police activity. Dozens of police cars rushed to the scene with their lights on, only to arrive to complete chaos at the shopping center called the Bayside Marketplace. Later, grainy footage of the incident was released and started to circulate online, appearing to show a 10 to 12 foot gray alien creature slowly walking around the area outside the mall as police closed in on the scene. Other footage from that night shows people frantically running away amongst the flurry in a panic. This is, of course, all it took for rumors to start running rampant on social media. A huge alien-like creature was wandering around Florida, and the police were trying to cover it up. Terrifying, right? But like most stories, there's a lot more than meets the eye at first. Miami PD finally released a statement responding to all the rumors going on with this footage and with this incident on this day. And the police said that it was simply teenagers getting into a fight at the mall. Unfortunately for Miami PD, not only did this do nothing to squash the rumors about an alien invasion, but for many people, this was just further proof of one. A little brawl amongst teenagers, literally minors, at the mall surely would not warrant such a crazy high police response, right? Why are dozens of police cars rushing to the scene with their lights on over a little brawl? Seems like an awfully convenient cover-up story when there's this footage going around of this giant creature. Why are police trying to kind of brush this under the rug and minimize it? And additionally, if they wanted to prove that there wasn't an alien creature, why aren't the police releasing their body cam footage? Many people were convinced that the police were just trying to cover up this alien thing, as so many are convinced the government and the military tries to cover up alien incidents as much as possible, and surely that's what this was. However, if you're only getting your information from Twitter or Reddit, there is a lot of information missing, and people are just reporting the story as I reported it to you, stressing that it was just a tiny fight amongst teens and dozens of police officers came for something that wasn't a big deal. That's what they claimed, and that it was just a cover-up. They kind of only stress the parts that support that story. Turns out, reports later came out saying that this was not a little spat between a couple teenagers who just got a little physical. In fact, it was actually a pretty huge fight involving many teenagers, and some reports even called it a riot. But not only that, this group of teens had fireworks, and they were setting off the fireworks in the area. Now, quick context for any of my non-American friends out there that don't deal with just so much violence in the news on almost a daily basis in your country. Here in America, where mass shootings are practically normalized at this point, it is not uncommon for people being on the scene of a to tell police or tell their story later, saying that at first I thought it was fireworks. At first, I just thought somebody was setting firecrackers off or fireworks. It sounded like fireworks, and I didn't realize until later that somebody had a gun, and that was the sound that I was hearing. So it's very common for people, especially in a popular area like this, like a mall, that are sometimes the chosen place for events like this from perpetrators. It's not uncommon for people to then instead, because mass events are so common here, it's very common for people to then assume it's the opposite, to assume it's perhaps not fireworks, but something really bad happening. And that's what happened here. Somebody local heard all the popping of these fireworks that these teens were setting off, and they called 911. Thankfully, as they should. Better be safe than sorry. So the police get a call of a possible mass event, and that is what triggered such a large police response. So even though it did not end up being a mass event, thankfully, thank God, the police still are going to respond as if it is. So all hands on deck, all forces on deck, all the gear, all the SWATs stuff, all of that. That is why there was such a huge response this day. This would also explain why it was weird that the police had, more powerful weapons than usual and more powerful gear on, which would be weird to somebody if they didn't know that they were thinking they were responding to a mass event. 4 minors ended up being arrested. They were only aged 14 to 16 for their involvement in the incident, as apparently there were 10 to 15 kids originally who started the riot, but also allegedly these kids jumped a male victim after they threw a bottle at his car, stealing his phone from his car. The man obviously got angry at the group of kids and approached and confronted them, but then the kids proceeded to assault this man. They jumped him, though thankfully the man reportedly was not seriously injured by this. So that is what happened here. There was an incident with a group of teens who got way too rowdy, 10 to 15 teens, and they ended up getting in an altercation with a man where they did assault that man, which was not okay, but then they were also setting off fireworks and wreaking havoc, and it caused local residents to panic and call 911, and it made it seem like it was going to be a much worse scenario than it thankfully ended up being. Okay, so great. That explains the police response, but what about the weird alien thing? Well, reports finally responded to that viral footage saying that this footage doesn't show an alien at all, but rather 3 people walking together, possibly 3 police officers in full gear walking side by side at a pretty slow pace, making it appear from this angle and very blurry footage to be a weirdly tall creature. But if you finally dig and find an alternative video, it's slightly clearer and you can kind of see what they're talking about. You can see this being 3 people walking side by side. And that also explains why those people were running away in that other video, because other people might have heard the fireworks and also thought that something really, really bad was happening. However, all these explanations were not enough to some. As we know, many people are very distrustful of not only the government, but police officers, and they believed that this was still just a cover-up, that this was just a cover story. And I will give the conspiracy theorists one point for this. I will admit that it is strange that police will not release the body cam footage. If it was not anything, if it was just 3 people walking along, why wouldn't some police show body cam footage of them walking around that area so that people could compare the footage and see that it was not actually an alien? And if this was 3 people, why aren't they running away like a lot of other people are? I mean, I can see how there could be plausible explanations for this as well. If those were 3 police officers walking together, they probably already notified that the area was secured and that it was not actually a scary event and that everything was okay. So that's why they're walking so calmly. Additionally, the police might not release body cam footage for stuff like that if they think it's stupid, right? If they think they post about how it's no aliens, no UFOs, y'all are silly, like, ha ha ha, they laughed at us for saying and implying that. And so perhaps they just didn't release the footage because they thought the notion was so dumb that they didn't bother wasting time and resources to release the footage and try to debunk this from people. But even if they had, I think there would still be people saying like, that's not it either. You're still covering it up. So it's kind of hard to win, especially for conspiracy theorists. Pretty much no matter what you say, they will find a reason why their conspiracy is still the answer. So you guys usually know what side I fall on. I'm always the skeptical, logical side, but let me know what you think. For our last story today, we're journeying our way to the Czech Republic in July 2017. This story is about 22-year-old Nicole Barabasova and her friend, 24-year-old Nicole Verlovsky. This story is a little confusing because both women in this story are named Nicole. Nicole Verlovsky is with a C. Nicole Barabasova is with a K. So for the sake of clarity on this story, I'm going to name the women by the first letter of their last name. So Nicole with the K, Barabaskova, I'm just going to refer to her in this story as B, and she is the driver of the car. Nicole with the C, Vorlovsky, I'm just going to refer to her as V. I'm naming them with just initials of their last names so that I also don't butcher the last names over and over. B and V were enjoying a beautiful summer day in July 2017, taking a joyride in B's Volkswagen. B, like I said, it's her Volkswagen. She is the driver. These two women are having the time of their lives. They're laughing and joking together as they chat and drive along the freeway. The reason we have footage of this is because the women would sometimes go live on Facebook, and that's what they were doing on this day. Soon into the drive, V takes out her phone and starts the live stream. Remember, she is the passenger and she's the one holding the phone. There's several confusing things about this story that I had to get straight. One of them is, why is it look like B is driving when she should be in the passenger seat? And just if you don't know, when you flip the camera, when you do the little flippy to take a selfie on your iPhone or your smartphone, it mirrors the camera. So it's going to look like you're in the opposite seat in the car. So in the Czech Republic, the driver's seat is on the left side of the car and they drive on the right side of the road, just like it is in the United States. The passenger is on the right. But in this case, it looks opposite because the camera is mirrored. But rest assured, B is the one in the driver's seat and she is on the left side. Now, B was not holding the phone to do the live stream, but it was very clear as the driver that she was not driving safely and she was very distracted and did not have a care in the world. She's looking over at her friend and at the phone on several occasions, talking to the live stream and talking to her friend. Little did they know, while they were filming this live stream, they were filming the last few minutes of B's life. The video starts with the two women singing along to music. They're waving at a man in another car and trying to get him to wave back at them. They're letting the viewers know that they're bored and asking if anyone wants to meet up. This was a very small live stream. V at one point says that they had 5 people watching, and a few minutes later she tells B, the driver, that there's now 10 people watching. So it was very small. They were just talking to their actual friends on the live to see if anybody wanted to meet up. They repeatedly talk about how bored they are and that everybody's busy and doesn't want to meet up with them. They talk about how earlier they went shopping for clothes, and when they didn't end up buying anything, they went to McDonald's to eat. B, at one point, even takes both hands off the wheel to answer a phone call, and it ended up being her grandmother. This part's really sad too, because when she's on the phone, she talks to her grandmother about what her mom's doing and how they're going to have a barbecue the following day. It's really heartbreaking to know that this is the last conversation that this grandmother would have with her granddaughter, and that B is talking about her plans for the next day and that she would never get to make it there. She would never get to go to that barbecue. Another important thing is that several times they joke about how B is literally driving like a maniac, that she's going way too fast, how she is just waiting to get pulled over from a police officer, and they verbally talk about how she's ignoring warning signs and driving way too fast.
Go, 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 go! Go, yeah! Na co se ti ptá 10 lidí? Že nás sleduje 10 lidí, vole. Já jsem nikdy takhle sledovaná nebyla, maximálně na primě, vole. Hele, tak když já si takhle, ty pičo červená. Ona má herpího, jo, takovýho brouka, znáte to. A ukážeme vám, jak pojedeme 180. 180 normálně jede blázen, holka. A jen se dostaneme na rychlostku, tak krásný, pojedeme tak 60.
The women were going at least 120 kilometers an hour, which is about 75 miles per hour if you're in the US. It's too fast. It is over the speed limit, but that's not like outrageous. That's not like race car track speeds, right? But the problem is that they were trying to go faster. They were talking about trying to go as fast as they could, saying that on other occasions, B had hit over 180 kilometers per hour. You can see in the video that B is trying to drive faster and faster, and that V is kind of going, whoa, and laughing at some points because she's going too fast. But eventually, B loses control of the car. You can hear in the video, V lets out a small scream, like she's went from laughing to screaming in a half a second, and then impact. I can't show you this part of the video because it's hard to know what YouTube is going to restrict me severely for nowadays, but they run right into a noise barrier. And I will say, watching this full video, the silence afterwards is probably the most upsetting, disturbing, eerie thing you will ever not hear. It's just laughter and jokes and driving, a scream, and then the loudest sound of silence. The windshield wipers were turned on in the crash on accident, and that's all you hear for a while, for minutes, is just the windshield wipers and silence. Very quickly, though, other drivers and witnesses come to try to help. Within minutes of the crash, another driver stops and shouts for someone with them to call an ambulance, call the police. He tries to shout to the women in the car, seeing if he can get a response, seeing if they're okay or at least conscious. You can hear absolute chaos outside the car as people gather to try to help. One of just the sweetest women in the entire world comes up to the car. You never see her, but she is, you could tell she must be a mom or something because she's so nurturing, and she goes up to the women in the car and says, hey, are you okay? And V, Nicole Verlowski, the passenger, the one that was filming them, she is alive and she's conscious, and she starts making noises. She starts moaning, and when I tell you I will hear these sounds of her moans for the rest of my life, I'm not kidding. And I'm not going to play them for you here because, again, I don't know what YouTube... I found these videos. Some people got restricted and other people didn't. So I have no idea what I'm allowed to play. But you can easily find it if you really want to go watch the whole thing yourself. But I will warn you, it's really, really disturbing. So this woman hears that V is alive and awake, and she says, breathe, 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 don't move, please don't move, please don't move. People are debating on whether they should pull her out of the car or not, and they do thankfully decide not to move her because, of course, you're not supposed to move a car accident victim because if their neck or their spine is broken, they need to be moved in a very particular way to not make it worse. But these angels around them, and thank God they didn't hurt anybody else in the crash, these angels around them are just gathering around, and they're just frantically getting the ambulance there as fast as possible and just trying to keep Furlowski calm, trying to keep her from panicking, obviously, because that's going to raise your blood pressure, which is not good for your injuries. And she's trying to sit up. So upsetting too. I'm going to describe what happens in the video, even though I can't play the audio for it. But like the way that she's moaning, it sounds, I'm going to just kind of make an example of what it sounds like. She's like making noises like, it's haunting. She obviously has a very big head injury, right? So she's incredibly disoriented. She probably didn't even remember it or know what had happened at that point. And she's trying to talk and she can't. It is haunting. It is so disturbing. Okay, so anyway, so the woman is telling her like, no, you can't move your head. She's telling them my hand hurts, my head hurts. She's trying to ask them for water. She's so thirsty, which makes sense. I think when you're in shock like that, people might feel thirsty and nauseous, and they finally get her water. And the woman, she doesn't let her drink water again, thankfully, because she's going to throw up as it is, probably from her head injury, and they shouldn't do anything until the EMTs come. But the woman starts patting water on her face to like cool her down, just to try to make her feel better until the ambulance comes. So it's about 10 minutes after the crash. 10 minutes later from the video, it's still live streaming at this point. You don't see anything. You're just looking at the ceiling and hearing sounds. But at this point, it's about 10 minutes later and the ambulance finally arrives to come and try to take care of the girls. So the ambulance comes and gets the women out of the car. A police officer comes and finds the phone. And again, he doesn't seem to notice that it's live streaming. He doesn't turn it off or anything. The police officer brings it to the van where the police officers are staying, and the phone stays there and it continues to live stream, and you can hear the police talking to each other. So the EMTs got V on a stretcher and they were able to load her into the ambulance, and she went to the hospital. She was in pretty bad condition. She was definitely in critical care at the hospital, critical condition for a while, but she survived. She was okay in the end. The impact of the car, I guess, didn't hit her side. So she just was lucky and she didn't die. B, on the other hand, as alluded to before, she was not as lucky. She was airlifted in a helicopter to the hospital where she later died of her injuries. We then hear B's father arrive at the scene, and this was frustrating because the police officer wasn't very understanding. One of the women police officers that talked to B's dad is like, after he's of course frantic and freaking out, and at one point he calls his daughter a dumbass. He says something around like, what a dumbass, I bought her that car and this is what she does, and she drives like this. And after he walks away and he's like, can I see her? He's like freaking out as any parent would. And the police officer pretty much calls him like a jackass. She like says like, he comes and yells at me. She was mad that he was yelling at her, which I didn't really feel like he was from my point of view. Granted, I don't understand the language, but it didn't sound like he was yelling at her. It's just really wild to me that a police officer wouldn't be incredibly understanding of a parent who just learned that their kid was in an accident so bad they were airlifted to the hospital. I feel like that is so disrespectful and so cold to just be like, ugh, and then he yells at me. Unbelievable, she said. Like, she's so mad. It was very, very bizarre.
Dobrý den. Já jsem volal. Jo. No, tady máte občanku mojí dcery nebo průkaz noce. No.
Tak tady takovou.
No tak si to tako.
Zatím nevíme, co se dělo. Děvčata byly vyproštěný.
Ale kde mám dceru, nebo můžu vidět?
Budou převezený do Ústí. Jestli tady ještě je vrtulník, tady měla být.
Je tam vrtulník. Holka vrtulník.
No. Tak k doktoru. Bližší informace u doktorů na ten zdravotní stav.
Můžete podeptat na to, že
no. Byla na místě řidiče, vyprošťovali z místa řidiče.
To je blbá. Koupil auto, vlastně koupil takový, učí se takovou srač. A můžete někoho zeptat tady?
Doktoři, tady tady máte defekty první sanice, by měla být spolu s mě. Že on sem přijede a bude na mě řvát. Konec.
Again, just because no matter, this man's in shock, he's freaking out. And I like him calling his daughter a dumbass for driving like that also like makes sense. He's in shock. And as far as he knows, she's alive still. So I just don't think we can hold people that accountable for the words they say when they are in shock and dealing with one of the most horrific things that will ever happen in their entire life. So then V's dad, the survivor, the passenger's dad, comes to the scene as well. He shows up and he finally gets the phone. The police give it to him because it belongs to his daughter, to V. And we see dad like look at the phone, what the hell, and he turns it off. And the live stream finally ends.
No, povím.
Ne, paní, nevěděla jsem se, nepředstavila, se omlouvám, ale jsem nevěděla.
Řekli vám doktoři, co...
Jak seklo. Je to nějak vypnul, tady telefon.
Now, if you go look this up on your own, there's going to be other videos that claim that V was the one that died and that B, the driver, was the one that survived. And I do have to say, the women look in these really glammed up photos of like B, for example, it is understandable to get her confused with her friend Nicole. Both the women are named Nicole, just slightly different spellings. They're both like around the same age. They're both young white women, same colored hair and stuff. And then on top of that, allegedly the reporters got it wrong at first. So there's still news articles out there claiming that Verlovsky was the one who passed away, the passenger, and that the driver is the one that survived. Like it says that in the articles. And so there's other videos and articles that say that, but that is not the case. B, Nicole B, the driver, the one with the scarf, she's more tan. She is the one that passed away and V is the one to survive. So I just wanted to let people know that, like the confusion with the flipped phones and everything, there's not a ton of information about this outside of the videos that we have in the live stream. So I just wanted to clarify that for people, that you're going to see some people got it wrong. People got the reports wrong. The driver is the one that died, though. The passenger did not. It was not vice versa, like some say. It's also pretty hard to find any information. I couldn't even find an obituary for B, and I can't find anything about V on social media. I'll give it one more try during editing to see if I can find anything about where she was. I just hope that she learned a valuable lesson, I'm sure, and it's really hard because like I know that you go through a phase in life where you're dumb and you think that you're invincible, but usually, 22 years old is not a teenager. 22 years old is a full-grown adult, and I do believe you should know better than to drive like that. I'm not saying that anybody deserved to lose their life over this. This was awful, but I have less patience for stuff like this when you are not just putting your life in danger, but you're putting your passenger's life in danger and other people in danger. Like imagine she crashed into a family. Imagine she crashed into people that then lost their kids because of your reckless drive, because you wanted to go on a joyride, because you wanted to look like a badass on Facebook live stream for 5 to 10 people. Not that it would be better if it was more people watching or she had a huge audience, but I just have very little patience for this kind of thing where you are not just risking your own life. This isn't like Jacob in the first story where jumping off these things was risking his life. But that's all it was, that he had the right to risk his own life. You don't have the right to risk other people's lives. And so while I wish she hadn't died, that I wish that she had recovered from her injuries and she was able to go on and live life and advocate for not driving like this and also learning a valuable lesson. I'm just so grateful that nobody else was a victim in this case, that only the person driving was the victim, and thankfully her passenger too, who B was putting at risk, she was in the driver's seat, also did not pass away. So just so tragic all around. I really hope their family's doing okay. I can't imagine this. I cannot imagine losing your kid like this. I feel so bad for B's family. As dad even said on the scene, he was like, I hate that she drives like that. She's being a dumbass. But it's like, well, after they're adults, it's not like you can prevent them from driving. She was an adult and she made her own choices. Reminder to check out the Patreon because we do exclusive videos over there that are much more lighthearted than this at times. For example, right now over on the exclusive videos, if you're the mid-tier and above, you get access to exclusive videos. I'm working on the kink/fetish iceberg right now, the paraphilia iceberg, and I cannot show this on YouTube, and I'm pretty uncensored and I'm pretty down and dirty with that video, but a lot of people are enjoying it over there. So if you're interested in watching that and following along for that series, then you should definitely join the mid-tier of that to get access. We have 2 parts out right now, and there's going to be several more parts because it's a very long iceberg, but I literally stuff I can't even show on YouTube, and it's lighthearted, but it's gonna get dark as we get to the deeper tiers, as we know, because stuff like that gets dark. So yeah. Anyway, if you're still interested in the merch, we have Future Poltergeist, Future Ghost merch. We have the Camping Cryptid still available. We have the Peeking Ghost, or if you really want my channel name on your t-shirt, we have one over there as well. Please don't forget to like the video just to support the channel in spite of how sad and dark these stories are. And last, don't forget our sponsor today, which is Balesa. Thank you so much to them for supporting the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you so much to the patrons on the screen right now. Special shout out to all of our top tiers, but also to our newest top tier, and that is Angry Bird. So Angry Bird, thank you so much for joining the Patreon at the highest tier. The rest of the Patreons are on the screen, and I'll see you all in the next one. Okay, bye.
Från livets grottekvarn. Bullfest, bullfest hela dagen.